Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, the National Insurance Minister says the findings of the NIB audit may shock you. We've got his reaction tonight ahead of a cabinet review.
The Prince Hepburn murder trial could go to jury tomorrow. Ahead tonight, the witnesses who painted a different picture of the murder accused.
And a woman detective makes a startling admission during the inquest into the death of suspect Aaron Roll. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Kendino Knowles. As always, it's good to have you with us.
Topping the news tonight, Minister with responsibility for national insurance, Shane Gibson, says the public may be shocked by the findings of the NIB audit, though he stopped short of revealing any of its contents pending a cabinet review.
Minister Gibson spoke with reporters outside of cabinet today on the government's next course of action since taking possession of the report. Janaea Noel Ferguson has a story.
Having had an opportunity to dig into that national insurance report from auditors that minister responsible for the National Insurance Board, Shane Gibson, received on Sunday, the big question now, he says, is how does the government address the results? According to the minister, the government may propose amending the policy and procedures at the National Insurance Board, among other things.
We need some clear guidelines as to the levels of authority. We need to make it clear as to who would have individual authority versus the board having authority. I think one thing that is very apparent in the report is the fact that some individuals thought that their position gave them more authority than it did.
Now, after having an opportunity to view that report, Minister with responsibility of NIB, Shane Gibson, says the results are much worse than expected.
As far as I'm concerned, it's shocking to me. You know, it's even worse than I thought it would be. And so hopefully after we had a chance to have it properly scrutinized and I receive advice from my colleagues and the AG, hopefully in short order we could be making some decisions as to the way forward.
But will any charges be brought against anyone involved? Gibson says he could not say at this time.
I would simply say that we'll be referring it to the AG office, and the AG Attorney General, who is a lawyer for the government ministry, will then decide as to exactly what, if anything, should be done. So it's really difficult for me to say because I'm not a lawyer.
It has been reported that the Public Accounts Committee may also want to probe into that audit report, but Gibson says if they do or don't, the information will be free for all.
Not only would they be able to probe it, the entire public will be able to, because we're going to make this information eventually available to the entire public. And so if they have authority where they can use the Public Accounts Committee to, in the way they use it for government accounts, then I offer no objection to that.
Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Against the backdrop of a series of recent oil spills which have underscored weaknesses in the safe shipment of the precious commodity, the government held talks today with one of the leading oil distributors in Grand Bahama, Borco. Minister of the Environment, Kenra Dorset, said the talks gave the government an opportunity to speak candidly about its concerns and map out a course of action to safeguard the country's delicate ecosystem.
He has now given us an opportunity to arrange for an on-site audit of Borco and all of its operations. And it is the beginning, I believe, of us finally advancing a proper regulatory regime for those in the petroleum and oil sector, including petroleum retailers such as Rubis. While we may have certain environmental laws on the books, the reality is we do not have regulatory protocols regarding operations for these facilities, and that is what we're working together with the Attorney General's office and seeking external advice on that matter.
A verdict could come tomorrow in the high-profile Prince Hepburn murder trial. Today, the defense wrapped up its case after calling 3 character witnesses to the stand.
Our friend Carey has been following the case and tells us what witnesses testified that the accused murderer was Christian and fun-loving.
The 3 defense witnesses endorsing the good character of accused murderer Prince Hepburn included retired Assistant Commissioner of Police Willard Cunningham, property manager Pauline Curry, and electrical contractor Dwight Hall. They testified that they have known Hepburn for 20, 16, and 15 years respectively. The witnesses described Hepburn as an honest, reliable, humble, fun-loving Christian who was a community leader, a minister in his church, and a family man. In fact, Mr. Cunningham testified that he was shocked when he heard the news that Hepburn was facing a murder charge for allegedly killing his girlfriend, Nellie Brown Cox, because it was something that was against Hepburn's character. However, under cross-examination from lead prosecutor Franklin Williams, Cunningham and Hall admitted that they did not know Hepburn had left his wife and children and was involved in a relationship with Nellie Brown Cox, prompting Williams to suggest that they did not know Hepburn well. Curry also testified that she only had a business relationship with Hepburn and had never socialized with him except for attending his mother's funeral. Now, both the prosecution and the defense will give closing addresses Wednesday morning, after which Justice Indra Charles will sum up the case. Prince Hepburn's fate will then be in the hands of the jury. For Carey, ZNS Network News.
The officer who initiated the investigations into the death of 20-year-old Aaron Roll, the man found dead in a cell at the Southern Police Station back on February 8th, never prepared a report on the incident until yesterday when she was summoned to court. That was her testimony when she took the stand today.
Now, Detective Sergeant Donnell Brown of the Central Detective Unit's Serious Crime Section also told the court today that she was not aware that force was reportedly used against Roll while in custody. She claims she glanced over his detention record where that would have been noted by Constable 2468 Carl Smith, who is one of the subjects of the inquest. Carissa Robinson has more on today's proceedings.
On the day in question, Detective Sergeant Donnell Brown testified that she was the supervisor on the morning shift when she and 2 other officers went to the Southern Police Station, where she observed Roll's lifeless body lying in a cell. She also observed and collected a floral-colored sheet with some kind of substance on it, but she could not identify to the court what that substance was. On February 8th, Roll died at the Southern Police Station just a few hours after he was taken into custody for questioning for armed robbery, shop breaking, and escape. His death certificate says he died from a ruptured intestine due to blunt force trauma. However, Officer Brown testified Tuesday that she observed no injuries when examining Roll's body. So she then instructed crime scene investigators to process and photograph the scene. As they were doing that, Brown said she collected Roll's detention record, the station's duty roster, and recorded a number of statements from suspects who were in custody at the time. After that, Brown told the court that her work was done and said she then handed over the file to Inspector Deborah Thompson for further investigations to be carried out. Now, under cross-examination by Christina Galanos, the attorney who represents Roll's family, Officer Brown was asked to explain why she did not prepare a report on the incident until yesterday when she was summoned to court. Officer Brown agreed that it looked bad, but said at the time of the incident she was doing a number of things and fell down on not completing a report. The attorney also questioned Roll as to why she failed to read Roll's detention report, insisting that if she had, she would have known that force was used against Roll while in custody. However, Officer Brown said she only initiated the investigation, so that was something that she would not have observed. Even after learning through the media of Roll's cause of death, the officer still maintained that his death was sudden, as she noted in the incident complaint form. The inquest in its 5th day of testimony was adjourned to April 8th. 6 more witnesses are expected to be called. Carissa Robinson, ZNS Network News.
The appellate court has dismissed the Crown's appeal in the unlawful sex case of Juan Pratt. Pratt is the son of former Deputy Prime Minister Cynthia Pratt. You may recall that back in 2007, 2 underage girls claimed Pratt had sexual intercourse with them. But during the trial, the magistrate found a number of discrepancies in the testimonies given by the girls and acquitted Pratt on February 22, 2011. Prosecutors immediately filed an appeal, but during today's proceedings, the High Court dismissed the Crown's appeal and affirmed the magistrate's decision, indicating, among other things, in a written ruling handed down by Justice Stanley John, that the court is satisfied that the magistrate's decision in the circumstances was not unreasonable given the state of the evidence at the close of the whole case. Attorney Muriel DeSeal represented Juan Pratt.
In our first look at whether there is a chill in the air, but heavy cloud cover is preventing temperatures from dipping for the moment. But outside of our studios just now, we have partly cloudy skies, temperatures 72 degrees, relative humidity 53%. Your winds out of the north at 9 knots, barometric pressure 1,016.3 millibars, that's 30.01 inches and steady. But stay tuned, temperatures around the family violence, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
It was an early edition of Father's Day at CV Bethel today.
Still to come, the prominent father figures who made an appearance. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell HELIX Ultra. Performance you can see.